Good evening and welcome to Joy News Prime, live from our studio here at Kojo in Accra. We're live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144. Coming up in this edition, pig farmers describe government's decision to open up Ghana's market to import of pork and pork product from the United States as suicidal, knowing that the local industry is already struggling. We hear from the farmers who believe a better option is for government to invest locally than flood the market with foreign produce. Also, government releases over 290 million cedis to clear debt owed senior high school food supplies. The National Food and Buffer Stock Company says adequate food has been distributed to the institutions to address the recent food shortage. Now, also in this bulletin, the Attorney General's office urges Ghana Police Service to consider settling its dispute with Joy News' Latif Idrisu out of court. We have details of the proceedings in court following brutal assault visited on the journalist by policemen. Now, local pig farmers are against government's agreement with the United States to allow pork and pork products onto the local market. The farmers are shocked at the move, fear it will be suicidal for the thieving local industry. The pork market may be steadily growing. However, several factors are militating against the growth, especially access to feed and medication for the animals. According to them, opening the floodgate to the United States will crush their investment totally. Meanwhile, a statement cited by Joy News shows that government has already given the nod for the product to come in. Now, the statement reads in part. Let me share that with you shortly. Now, the statement that the United States Department of Agriculture has released indicates that they've had an agreement with the Ghana's Ministry of Agriculture already, and the statement says, in a signed letter to the veterinary medical officer of the United States Department of Agriculture's Food Safety and Inspection Service, dated January 12, 2023, the acting chief veterinary officer of the Ghanaian Veterinary Services Directorate of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture acknowledged receipt of the FSIS's proposed certificate of export for pork and pork products and confirmed its acceptance. Now, the Ghanaian market is now officially open to U.S. export of pork and pork products, in addition to other meat products from the United States. The statement again says that market access request for pork and pork products was made by the USDA's FSIS on October 24, 2022, and facilitated by FAS Accra. Now, FSIS proposed the use of the FSIS 9060-5 export certificate form for pork and pork products from the United States to Ghana. Now, this statement again says that responding to the request by USDA's FSIS to confirm the acceptance of the proposed export certificate of pork and pork products, the Chief Veterinary Officer of Ghana's Veterinary Services Directorate of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture indicated in a signed letter dated January 12, 2023, that Ghana will accept the proposed export certificate by the FSIS to cover all U.S. meat products, including beef, goat, lamb, pork, poultry, etc. So that's what the statement tells us. Now, as indicated in the 2021, Ghana's imported pork and pork product market value was at $16 million US. What do these figures really look like, and what will opening our market look like on the balance sheet? My colleague Kofi J of our data and research desk is here with me to break down the figures for all of us to understand. Kofi, what does the data really point to?
Right, Barry, so this is coming at the point where, as a country, we've actually dwindled our international reserve. So as we speak now, the monies we have as our international reserve will be able to cover only about 1.5 months of import cover. Now, if you look at the touch screen right now, it took the government less than 3 months to actually respond to the U.S. government's request for an access to our pork market here in Ghana. So the request was placed on the 24th of October last year. It took the government less than 3 months to actually respond to this. On the 12th of January this year, government gave them the green light that our market is open. Our market is somewhat worth around $16 million is open, and you can have access to this $16 million market that we're talking about. But as we speak, it's not only the pork market. somewhere, last year we saw the poultry market also facing similar challenge, and the Poultry Association also come in say that, about some of their members have lost about 80% of their working capital, and about 80% of all poultry ventures have actually closed down because of foreign interference into our market. So the first to take the hit was the poultry market, and now we are talking about pork. But this comes at a time where the finance minister, when he was speaking to Parliament in November 2022, said that if you look at our import bills as a country, we exceed it by some, $10 billion. And if you look at the things that actually bring this $10 billion, you can talk about rice, poultry, pork, and the other things that we import from other countries. So we look at this list and look at the countries that we import. So US wouldn't be the first country that we're actually importing, pork products from. Actually, every year we import pork products from this country. These are the top 10 countries that we're talking about. First being Belgium. Second is actually Poland. We have Germany, Netherlands, Ireland, Romania, Spain, and then there's Ukraine. We import pork from Ukraine. But if they've actually made a point that there's a time that we need dollars. There's a time that we are battling with our foreign exchange. And so placing more, force on our international reserve, which is somewhere around 1.5 months of imports cover, will really come out a heavy blow to us as a country. We are looking for a $3 billion IMF, bailout package to solve our balance of payments issue. Adding an additional, we're already adding 16 million. Adding pork to it will mean that this bill will actually increase, and it will put more pressure on the CD currently, which has actually lost about 90% of its value. Interesting statistics there. Now, what does this mean to the pig breeder in Ghana? Kwame Appiah Dankwa, the president of Pig Farmers Association of Ghana, believes the decision to open up the market to U.S. pork product is a ridiculous one. He joins us via Zoom now. Grateful that you could join us. Why do you think this is a ridiculous decision?
Yeah, good evening and thank you for having me. If we look at the figures that you just brought on your screen, it means the local farmer is really doing something positive and needs to be encouraged, not to discourage him or her. What we were expecting was for government to sit down with us and see how best it could even help us as farmers to improve upon what we are doing already in terms of the breeds that we have, to bring exotic ones into the system, and also to help us with the feed that we used to give our animals, not to hear that they are rather going to let the American market come wholesale into our system. Those figures that they show that already bring their products into the system, they just bring them in, the ham and the sausages and that kind of thing, not the whole pork as we are seeing to be coming from the US now. So it's something that if we don't put a stop to it or do something positive about it, it will really cripple the pork industry. So we really need to sit down with them, know exactly the package, so that we also know our role that we'll play, the advantages that we'll get, and if there's something that we need to change, then we will all discuss and put things in the right perspective, not just to sit down and after all the struggles that we've gone through all these years, now the market is getting fertile, then somebody will just come in wholesale and just come and take over the market. I don't think it's right. And we need to...
Why wasn't this made known earlier to the ministry and to government so that it could inform the sort of conclusion they would arrive at?
We never had any information. We never had any information. We also saw it on the social media and we thought it was just, something that the normal social media letters that we see. Because we are even at the moment having a meeting with the FAO on standardizations to work on biosecurity so that our farms will be well kept and disease control and all those things will come into play, to really improve the industry. And that is what we've been doing all these years, trying to get a better marketing system, which we gradually building up. And farmers are, getting happy. People are now investing more into the piggery setup, only for this coming.
So as a farmer, what will this mean to you? What will it do for you as a local pig breeder?
What it will do is that most of the farms cannot meet the competition and they'll fold up. Already, a lot of farms had issues with the ASF last year and they are now recovering from their farms. A lot of farms had issue with the expensive feed over the last couple of years. And because we've been able to now come up with a minimum per kilo price, it has really motivated farmers and they've now put in a little bit more money to get their businesses running again, only for this to also come at the beginning of the year.
All right, I'm grateful to you for joining us. Now, Dominic Ajekum is CEO of J Farmco, a local meat production and retailing company. He believes if this is allowed, this will cripple the local pig industry. Thanks for joining us, sir. Have you been able to wrap your head around this particular information we're receiving?
That would be a difficult one to get my head around. As a local processor and a retailer, I'm helping the local farmers. It's difficult. Why do I say this? In the beginning, you did, in your introduction, you used the word teething. Yes, the local farmers are in the teething state. The pork industry is in the teething state. And it's actually teething very well. Why do I say this? A lot of people are moving from foreign countries, coming in and investing into this sector with the hope that the market is at the early stages and that this is the time that they could invest well into the sector and make it bigger and better for the whole country as a whole. And all of a sudden, this news hits everyone in the country. Why is it so difficult for me? When this happens, my raw materials will not be met because local farmers are not bringing it anymore. And we're going to have foreign products inflation in the market, and hence businesses like my one are forced to shut down.
Interesting. Now, why do you say this will collapse the sector? You've explained that businesses like yours will suffer from raw materials, but paint the picture for us. There will be raw materials coming in from the US, isn't it? Won't it be available to you?
Well, it will, but it's not beneficial to everyone as a country in Ghana. Why do I say this? There's a lot of employment that's going on in the country because of pork production, pork farming that's going on. And companies like my one who rely on these farmers to process this meat and put it onto the market, we employ people as well who work for us. So when this happens, these are processed products already. And it's not something that coming live that we're going to be slaughtering that will benefit me, but it will not benefit a lot of people in the country, and especially people who are employed in these farms to work. I have a lot of people working here in my pork department. When this happens, I don't need their services anymore because no slaughtering, no processing will be happening because the US man has done it and pushed it into my country.
You also talk about the cost of production. For example, do we know how much it costs to produce a 10 kilogram of carton of chicken product in Ghana? And how does that fare against one that will be coming from the United States of America, for example?
Okay, so 10 kilo portion, if you want to put, let's say, number of chicken together to get a 10 kilogram, you're looking about 750 cedis, 750 Ghana cedis. Whereas the ones we buy, the ones we buy on the market is about 350 cedis. What it means is that production in the foreign country is actually cheaper. Because it's cheaper, the local farmer here cannot compete. And when that happens, the local farmer has no choice than to shut down. Of course, the consumer will love to get the one that is imported. Why? Because it's cheap. It's got the quantity that feeds a lot of people in the house. And when that happens, the local production is rejected. And what happens? Nothing but to shut down their farms, as Kwame said.
Okay. All right. Let me bring in Professor Robert Edu. He is an agric economist with the Faculty of Agriculture at KNUST. He also believes, just like we opened the poultry industry to foreign importation and has almost collapsed it, this might cripple the young pork industry too, if pragmatic measures are not taken. Prof, grateful that you could join us here. Let's look at the economics, the impact of this decision on the economy in general, looking at it from the point of view of the pork industry.
Thank you very much, Kojo. I think my friends have already set the tone. And sometimes for us as economists, we wonder what the agriculture trade policy of Ghana really is. Because when Kofi was giving us the information on the board, he mentioned rice, he mentioned broiler industry. It would appear that we have almost collapsed the local rice industry. It is now struggling to pick up. And then the broiler industry is also down. And now we are coming to the pig industry. It is so sad because instead of trying to boost exports so that we'll get a lot of foreign exchange into the country, we are rather trying to promote importation. And some of us find it difficult to understand why we are pushing that agenda. We are talking about high youth unemployment in Ghana. We graduate so many people from our tertiary institutions. They go out there and there are no jobs for them. If we are able to preserve the domestic agricultural industry, here specifically we are talking about the pig industry, we will be able to employ so many of our youth. And so, one, it is going to affect employment. Most of these young pig farms are going to collapse. There's no two ways about that. The cost is just too high to produce locally. Now, when you compare that to the one that they are going to bring in, the normal consumer who already has challenges with budget will go for the cheaper option. And when we are even talking about the health implications, those they are going to bring, no one really knows for how many years they have preserved them. And so I think as far as employment is concerned, we should try to be very cautious with this
But the
policy
importation
direction.
will also create sources of employment, isn't it?
No. But how many people can be employed by a cold facility? If you go to a typical farm, you have people who are there, those who are working on the feed, those who are feeding the animals, those who are processing. There are many, and I think the cascading effect is so great.
Okay. So
Nowadays, you
Prof,
go through the
going
street.
forward, how can we protect the local pork industry such that it can stay and grow as it is doing now?
I think that instead of allowing this unfettered importation, government should sit down with the players in the industry, try and rather give them subsidy so that they can produce and be profitable. People who are going to bring in imports, let us try to use tariff. Let's increase the import duty so that when they bring them in, the prices will be very high so that the local producer can be competitive on the market. Otherwise, we are going to create employment for people who are outside the country
Okay.
to the detriment of our economy.
All right. I'm grateful to you, Prof, for joining us. Now, moving on to other stories, over 290 million cedis has been released to clear debt of suppliers of foodstuff to the second cycle institutions. According to Chief Executive Officer of the National Food and Buffer Stock Company, Hanan Abdul Wahab, checks have been signed and will be dispersed to suppliers tomorrow. He said although the funds released do not cover the entire debt to suppliers, it will address the challenges of food shortage in the schools. The CEO spoke exclusively to Joy News.
The government has taken a very bold step in addressing this issue, as we owe most of our suppliers that have supplied to us in the last academic year. But thankfully, government has made some release last week that is, has gone through the various paperwork, and we have actually our bankers have confirmed how do you call it, money being in our account as we speak now. This morning I have signed almost all the checks of the suppliers we owe them in the last academic year, and this is going a long way to speed up the suppliers that are ongoing now. But nevertheless, we have been able to do quite well in most of the food items. You know, we have been engaged to supply 18 non-perishable food items, and out of that we have few ones that are very challenging. But now that funds are available now, and we have specialized suppliers for those commodities. Once payment is done, we would see the swift pickup those supply of those commodities to the schools.
Good to know that money has been made available.
Yeah.
To what extent does it help to make food available, or does it help to clear off your debt?
Currently, as we speak now, what government has released now actually is quite significant. He has been able to pay more than 50% of what we owe suppliers, and I think that is good for us. And we think that once we are able to make payments of the amount of money we receive from government, is going a long way to bring stability into the supply chain.
So you say more than 50% of the money.
Yes.
How much are we talking about here?
Government has released around 290 million, which is quite significant.
Cities or dollars?
Cities. Yeah. Yeah.
290 million cities
has been released, and is going a long way to support the distribution of the food, because like I said, I've signed almost all the checks, and we are going to also issue the checks to the suppliers from tomorrow. I'm sure even from tomorrow when you come here, you will see most of the suppliers here to pick up their checks.
How much do you owe in total?
Currently, as we prior to what government has released, is just a little over 400 million.
Okay.
A little over 400 million, and what government has released, we think is very significant, and we appreciate that support from the Ministry of Finance and the Minister of Finance himself, who has taken it upon himself to make sure that he reduces our burden.
Okay.
And plans are also far advanced in validating the rest of the invoices for payment.
Now, the CEO of Buffer Stock has also been given a breakdown of the food items that have already been distributed to the schools.
Some items that we have much challenges that has to do with money funds issues, but now that monies have been released, we are going to see a significant improvement in the supplies in the coming days. And I'm sure we'll not wait for you to come here. We'll give you a call so we can give you an update. And I'm sure yourself you can make phone calls to the schools, because we are very optimistic that once we start distributing the checks, suppliers are going to plow back the monies into the suppliers again. Gari, we have been able to do 53.01%. Beans, we have been able to do 54.45%. Peanuts, we have been able to do 41.77%. Millet, we have been able to do 11.16%. So you can see there are some of the items that we are really trailing. But of course, what it means is that those specialized suppliers of these commodities, we owe them so much, and they have gotten to their saturation point, and they need reinforcement. And after tomorrow, I'm sure there is going to be a pickup on this. Then vegetable oil, I'm able to do 44.7%. Palm oil, 51.32%. Margarine, 7.77%. That is not good enough. That is not good enough. And margarine was something that we actually discussed this morning, and we have gotten a new supplier that has some quantities, and we have given him the various quantities and then regions for the company to start the distribution, whilst the traditional suppliers of margarine gets their money from tomorrow. Yeah. Then tomato paste, we have 55.99%. Bread flour, we have 29.15%. So there is more room for improvement in terms of the flour supplies. Then tin milk, which is also on the lower side, we have 8.47%, which we are also hoping that it will pick up. Then we have hot chocolate from the cocoa processing company. We have done 52.62% so far. Sardine, we have done 47.59%. Mackerel, we have done 51.07%. Sugar, we have done 25.95%. It's also one of the challenging commodities. Then soya bean, we have done 28.88%. Then locally processed Tom Brown, we have 65.34%. So these are the percentage of supplies done so far as at last week Wednesday. So we are yet to even update this figure because as suppliers have is ongoing from Thursday, Friday to the weekend and today Monday. So close of day today we would call for reports. I'm sure there will be some improvement. But apart from that, we are relying heavily on these funds that we have received. As soon as we are able to, pay suppliers and it clears on their part, they'll be able to continue supplies and then do more to automatically bring down the tension in the system.
Now, legislative watchdog Parliamentary Network Africa says the explanation that the Haruna Idrisu-led minority leadership was changed due to bad blood between them and the speaker is untenable and worrying. Chairman of the NDC last week explained that a change was necessary to bring about regional balance and also to position the caucus to deal with economic issues, among others. But over the weekend, while addressing members of the NDC UK Ireland branch, the chairman revealed that the change was because the Haruna Idrisu-led group had serious challenges working with Speaker Bagbin.
Priorities in Parliament is to see our parliamentary caucus working together and also cooperating with the Speaker of Parliament. Why did we struggle to get an NDC person elected as a Speaker of Parliament? There are certainly some advantages, and those advantages can be tapped into when your leadership is cooperating with the Speaker. So we cannot have a situation where MPP leadership is cooperating with the Speaker and our NDC leadership have challenges cooperating with the Speaker. And if you are given a party whose leadership in Parliament is not working together, what will you do? You make the changes or you resign. And I'm not about to resign.
Now, to put this in context, during the debate on the censure motion, the Speaker of Parliament decided to refer the motion to a special committee. This decision infuriated former Minority Chief Whip Muntaka Mubarak, who had this back and forth with the Speaker.
Honorable, listen to him. Sit down and listen. You are completely out of order. Remember, I don't take my rulings lightly. Please.
Parliament, it is this chamber with the 275 members. Mr. Speaker, when it refers to
Honorable member, please. The House cannot be constituted without a Speaker.
I hold this
Honorable member, you have to withdraw it and apologize.
Before the Speaker says it. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I beg to...
Now, indeed, in a subsequent interview, he described the Speaker as a tyrant.
I'm sorry to say this. When you want to turn the Chamber of Parliament into a palace, then you become a tyrant.
Is he a tyrant?
He's becoming. And I'm sorry I'm saying this because this is my favorite speaker. I mean
you elected him.
I can tell you.
You whipped your members
I
to
can
elect
tell
him.
you that if there's a member of Parliament today in this house who, if I were a Suku fan, will enjoy the reign of this speaker, I don't think anybody will have enjoyed his reign better than me.
I mean, he owes his speakership to your whipping abilities.
Just as I disagree with Professor Quay, I disagree a number of times with Duajao. I won't say because Babin is my favorite speaker.
Have you told him this, that he's become a tyrant directly? Because you have a clear line of...
I have said that several times.
And what is his response?
He disagrees with me, but I tell him that, tell me what chief does, a chief will do in his palace. When he says anything, that's fine. That's what chiefs do. That's what chief, but you are not a chief. You are supposed to be a Speaker of Parliament. And the Speaker of Parliament listens to both sides and patiently, even where there's disagreement. And that's the essence of democracy. To sometimes even disagree, agree to disagree. But where you personalize it and make it look as if a disagreement is a disrespect to you, or it's an affront to you, or it's like denigrating you, then I'm sorry, then you'll be a bad speaker.
We can now hear from the Executive Director of the Parliamentary Network Africa, Semi Obeng, who says this explanation is untenable. Sami joins us via Zoom now. Grateful that you could join us. You have said that the reasons given as to the lack of cooperation with the Speaker is the reason for the change in leadership is untenable. But that is certainly a good reason, isn't it?
Well, the Speaker must certainly enjoy some level of cooperation with both sides of the aisle, because by the way Parliament is structured, you know, cooperation, agreeing to disagree and all of that is part of, you know, how Parliament works and functions effectively. And that is why every morning you have, before Parliament sits, the leadership of both sides meeting with the Speaker, you know, to go through what the day is going to look like, to agree on things they can agree on, and then to also feel free to disagree on things they cannot, you know, agree on. So if we are told that because a Speaker belongs to a particular political party, the leadership of that particular party's caucus must agree with the Speaker at all times. And if they break ranks with the Speaker on one issue or the other, it should warrant taking those people out of leadership. If that really is the reason, then I think that it portends a very worrying trend.
Okay, I'm grateful that you could join us with that. And now, still to come here on Joy News Prime, the Attorney General's office urges Ghana Police Service to consider settling its dispute with Joy News' Lateef Idrisu out of court. We have details of proceedings in court following brutal assault visited on a journalist by policemen. Now, welcome back from the break. The Attorney General's office says no policeman assaulted Joy News' Lateef Idrisu. This claim comes the same day an attorney representing the Attorney General had told the court the Inspector General of Police had been asked to seek an out-of-court settlement with a journalist. Mr. Idrisu and the multimedia group are in court demanding payment of damages for the assault visited on the journalist by policemen. The journalist was in March 2018 beaten up while covering a protest at the police headquarters. He has since been battling various health complications arising from head injuries due to the assault. Court correspondent Joseph Akable reports.
So I feel the pains in my head because that's where they used the butt of the gun to hit, and my rib, and in my right leg, and my chest.
They hit your chest too?
Yeah, they were hitting me all over, so.
These are the areas you feel pain, but generally, how are you feeling?
My neck as well, yeah, because of the slaps, you know.
What has the doctor been telling you?
He was very worried.
Lateef continues to suffer as a result of the injuries sustained during that brutal assault. The Attorney General's office, however, says no policeman touched him. Mr. Idrisu dismisses the allegations, insisting he was beaten by many policemen.
How many of these police officers?
There were a lot of them. There were lots.
Can you put a number to them?
For those guarded in front of the headquarters, there were more than 20. So he pushed me into them. They didn't know what was going on between the two of us. But I don't know, they all started beating me, slapping me here and there. So I shouted and called him, Joel. Joel, he came and I asked him to start filming. He raised his camera and he started doing something. Some of them also pounced on him and pulled him away. So then they pushed me into the main building and it got crazy.
The Attorney General's office on Monday told the court it had asked the IGP to pursue settlement talks. Lead counsel for Lateef Idrisu and the multimedia group, Samson Ladi Anyenini, told the court the previous settlement talks mediated by the National Media Commission did not yield much. Lateef then proceeded with his testimony recounting the incident. He's back in the witness box on Tuesday when he'll be cross-examined by the Attorney General's office.
Now, scores of Burkinabés have fled to Ghana following attacks by suspected terrorists. The attackers are said to have invaded the communities of Zouaga and Zeboko in the center-east region, where they allegedly chased out the police, burned down their station, and then issued an order to the inhabitants to leave the area. The displaced Burkinabés are currently camped across the border at Wednaba in the Boku West municipality of the Upper East region. Officials have confirmed a total of 2,000 new arrivals over the last 2 weeks. Correspondent Elias Utanko's report.
Over the past 2 weeks, increasing jihadist aggressions in southeastern Burkina Faso have pushed hundreds of Burkinabés across the border into Ghana. These displaced Burkinabés are said to have come from communities in the Zouaga department, where armed men linked to the Jinem terrorist group have since the beginning of this year allegedly launched coordinated attacks targeting the security and defense forces, including the civilian auxiliary forces known as VDPs or Kugluwego. The terrorists were said to have attacked the border communities of Zerboko, Yoga, Zebere and Zoga, where they looted and in some cases set ablaze a police station and also ordered the people to end any cooperation or collaboration with the state security forces or face collective punishment the next time they return. Panicked by the terrorist invasion, these Burkinabés decided to flee to Ghana for protection, with most of them arriving in the Upper East region of Naba, near Zebila in the Boku West municipality.
They came to a place called Zerboko. There's a mining place where they came on Friday. Before the Friday prayer, they occupied the place, according to what he heard from the people. And they have guns, they have motorbikes and everything. They talk to the people that they want those who have the guns. That they heard that there are some people here have collected the guns. They want them and the soldiers. They are holding guns, killing people, doing whatever they want without persecution or without law. So that is why they came there, and some people tell us that they are killing people and the people are all running, and I also ran. And first they come to Widnaba here to save my life and my family's.
According to officials in the region, over 2,000 new arrivals were recorded in the past weeks, in addition to about the same number already in the region since July of last year. This Fulani settlement on the outskirts of Widnaba village is one of the locations hosting the displaced Burkinabés. There are about 120 refugees here, mostly women and children, including this 90-year-old woman and weeks-old babies. This 70-year-old woman said she was brought here by her children after the attack by the terrorists.
Okay, I heard that there's a people who come, they're killing people, and my people took me and ran and come and leave me here.
This woman also fled from Zouaga with 14 of her children.
They came there at Zouaga, and we heard that they go and face the soldiers or the police, and they all also run and they go and burn their police station, and the people from all Zouaga are running, and that's why we also run and come here.
It was observed that the refugees here, since their arrival more than 2 weeks ago, have been sleeping under trees alongside their belongings with no decent shelter. Elias Utanko reporting from Wednaba on the border with Burkina Faso for Joy News.
Now, 42 persons in the Ablekuma North constituency have received scholarship packages covering full tuition fees from Sheila Patel's bursary program to support their education. The scholarship scheme, under the auspices of the Member of Parliament for Ablekuma North constituency, Sheila Patel, seeks to assist brilliant but needy students in public tertiary institutions. Prince Ouswansan.
Education is a right and needs to be accessible to everyone. However, financial constraints leave many students unable to achieve their dreams. The Member of Parliament for Ablekuma North constituency, Sheila Patel's, under her scholarship scheme, Sheila Patel's bursary program, is changing the narrative.
I don't think we are necessarily substituting education for other developmental projects. though we believe that human development is extremely important and critical, especially as we are in a developing country. We have seen that our government has, led by His Excellency the President, has prioritized education and with the free SHS program, as well as other programs that the government is doing to ensure that in the future we don't struggle with quality human resources. So it is important that we also do prioritize education within the municipality.
The Education Director of Ablekuma North Constituency, Perry Ofori, added the country will benefit if constituencies invest in people's education.
So we, from the education perspective, we are here to ensure that education delivery is done and done well to help the constituents and the members of the municipality. And so every activity, every program that anybody brings, which will help the cost of education, we are for it. Education delivery, I think this is how it's supposed to go. And what investment can we do better than investing in education? So educating one person from the municipality, we know the benefits that we are going to get.
Akelia Ababans, a beneficiary, said the scholarship scheme will help pay her university tuition fees.
My parents literally didn't have any amount to pay. They literally didn't have any amount to pay for my admission. So we wrote a letter to her, and then by God's grace, she could help us. And then with this amount, I can pay at least half of my fees and then start with the education.
The scholarship scheme can help students achieve their academic potentials. Prince Owusu and Sense report read to you.
You're also watching Joy News Prime. We'll take a quick break. We will return with shoulders.